core. It illustrates how IFAC acts and influences from the centre outwards. Firstly, it engages directly with the profession through its member bodies and other relevant institutions represented by the pink layer. Through them, in turn, influence is exerted on regulators and on individuals in the orange-brown layer. Finally, the outer blue layer represents community and society. Each layer contains important outcomes that IFAC seeks to achieve. One clearly sees that IFAC's big aims can only ever be achieved through the agency of others, and the further out one goes, the more indirect is IFAC's influence. But this hierarchy of influences can be effective, especially if the pink layer, that includes accountancy organisations like yours, plays its full part. So now let's home in on the pink and orange-brown rings. I've circled the desired outcomes that affect the PAIB community. The PAIB Committee's strategic vision, achieving global recognition of professional accountants as business leaders and strategic partners in building long-term sustainable organisational success, is identified here clearly as one of IFAC's overall mission deliverables. We finalised our vision last year in a thorough reappraisal of our strategy following an IFAC board review in 2009. Guided by that vision, our committee's remit is to concentrate on two strategic objectives. One is to increase awareness of the important role professional accountants play in securing sustainable value for organisations and their stakeholders. The second is to support member bodies, that's accountancy institutions, in enhancing the competence of their members by sharing good practice. These twin objectives have an interesting implication. On the one hand, the remit to promote the role requires us to understand and influence perceptions of PAIBs, both within and outside the profession itself. On the other hand, we must recognise that the underlying reality of the situation needs to be good enough to support the aspirations implied by the promotional message. This requires us to articulate clearly the strengths professional accountants working in organisations bring to their employment, the direction in which that needs to change to keep up with the complicated and challenging world I described at the beginning, and to support the coalescence of the reality and the perception at ever-increasing levels of excellence and relevance to stakeholders. In practice, this means working through IFAC's member bodies as the prime customers of our output, encouraging them to own our aims and helping them not only with relevant internationally developed material, but with help to make the best use of it. The groundwork for this is set out in the PAIB Committee's current work in progress entitled Competent and Versatile: How Professional Accountants in Business Drive Sustainable Organisational Success. Within the context of the major world trends affecting organisations described earlier, it identifies a set of factors widely understood to drive sustainable organisational success, and then draws out the strengths of professional accountants and the potential contribution they can and ought to be able to make in the light of both of these. It aims to address the reality and perception issues together by offering at the same time both a description of what PAIBs do and can contribute and a prescription for enhancing it in the light of expectations. I describe it here as a way of thinking about our half of the profession, enabling it to be seen as firmly part of the overall profession, yet quite distinctive from accountants in public audit practice. The document is currently being revised in the light of responses to a consultation draft put out last autumn. I expect the committee to approve a version for issue at our next meeting in May. It will need regular refreshment to keep abreast of world developments, so we'll welcome ongoing feedback. From the resources in the full document, we will prepare articles and summaries aimed at specific types of stakeholder, our intent is to maximise its usefulness and effectiveness in the hands of accountancy bodies within their own jurisdictions. So what does make a professional accountant in business distinctive? There are, of course, the advantages of being a professional, tested by examination, required to maintain competence and knowledge through a career-long structured professional development process, operating to a code of ethics guided by the public interest, and with competent and professional behaviour subject to regulatory oversight, backed by disciplinary sanctions, and belonging to a member body from which they are able to receive support. But the distinctive aspect of the professional accountant, and certainly of the PAIB, might be described as the accountant's mindset, or instinctive way of thinking. This way of thinking includes a sceptical attitude, reluctance to take statements at face value until reliability has been tested, suspicion of received wisdom. We look for decisions to be based on evidence, and we have the skills to present that evidence well and convincingly. Accountants need to be characterised by their analytical approach and the rigour by which it is applied. But perhaps the most compelling advantage of the professional accountant in business is their focus on financial performance, with an instinctive drive to understand and explain the financial consequences of decisions and actions. An IFAC study some years ago highlighted the key importance of that mindset for CFOs in their relationship with the CEO, combining information support for strategic planning with an ability to be a restraining influence when needed. In today's complexity, we can see the CFO as an organisation's navigator, playing a leading role in ensuring the sustainability of the organisation and seeing that performance is managed in the long-term interest of stakeholders. The document identified 8 drivers of sustainable success in organisations. They included strong financial management and innovation and adaptability, which should be in the accountant's toolkit already. This slide draws from the other 6 drivers to identify what will be expected from the accountant according to their level in the organisation. Strategic leadership is an important driver. Obviously, we look for this at board level, but other PAIBs can be involved if the right arrangements are in place to cascade strategy to lower organisational levels. The PAIB will need a strong focus on stakeholders, including customers. A CFO can challenge if board actions fail to take particular stakeholders into account or appear to overlook presented evidence. Effective strategy is important to the leadership of any organisation. PAIBs who support strategy need a good grasp of the big picture. They can, though, bring an important strength to strategy discussions by bringing their knowledge of the detail to bear to test the likely viability of possible strategy in practice. Strategy only remains effective if it is well executed. A PAIB needs to get good at effective execution. For a CFO, this may include both ensuring that strategy within the finance area is handled well and adding value through appraising the fitness for purpose of implementation plans generally. Part of successful execution requires an ability to see things across organisational boundaries and integrate. Nowhere is this more important than in the areas of governance, internal control, risk management, and increasingly sustainability issues, where many organisations have permitted these strategic activities to develop in separate silos under different leadership. Knowing both how to integrate these things and that they ought to be integrated could become a key differentiator for PAIBs. Successful organisations manage their people well. Finance managers have often, in my experience, been scathing of their personnel and HR colleagues. But CFOs need good personnel practices themselves.